We've seen a lot of space.
Mostly the ceiling.
Wow. Yeah, that's really adjustable.
Progression.
I cannot get any shorter. That's not even good.
Both of them. Call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee to order. Would you all please rise for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. It will be available on YouTube and on Facebook following the meeting. Our first order of business this meeting is the approval of the meeting minutes of February of our last meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve meeting minutes of February 27th, 2025 as written.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments on those? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, abstained, and I say yes, so that is unanimous. We also have our bills and payroll. I would entertain a motion to accept the bills and payroll warrants as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Sean, second by Heather. Any questions or comments about those? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, abstained, and I say yes, so that is also unanimous. And now, please, apologies for our delays. We were having a bit of a technical issue, but I would now like to call our preliminary budget hearing to order. Good. Who should I hand this off to for the presentation?
I also, absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So obviously, being a preliminary budget meeting, we certainly will discuss as many items as we possibly can. I'll get into kind of the cloak and dagger of what that statement means as we move through that. So if we go to the opening slide, we're obviously incredibly proud of not only the programs, but the things we're getting to offer students. And this year, you know, many of these things are just been years in the making, and we've capitalized or we've built on a lot of these programs and offerings. But so some of the bigger areas is that we have the MVP Academy, which 12 juniors and seniors are enrolled in a vocational program through Monty Tech in the areas of carpentry, electrical expansion, carpentry and electrical department. And we've that program has honestly received a lot of positive feedback from not only the students and their parents, but the staff in regards to how our students are doing. So it's a great way, and I think that we're innovative in the fact that I think this is where vocational, some of it, not all of it, but vocational instruction is going in terms of more collaborative with the districts. And the kids don't actually have to be, they can stay Narragansett students, which I think is important to a lot of us. We've expanded the digital literacy curriculum in both the elementary and middle schools. Talked about not only adding a teacher this FY, but to improve the curriculum as well. We've added an 8th grade world language teacher, which really helps us with now being able to offer a civil literacy. Extracurricular activities are very not only very important, but they're very well attended. You know, we have the return of our spring musical that will be soon, starting at the beginning of April. We've expanded the middle school music program by adding another music teacher, which is really, it's adding back. We've had that position, on for the past, several years. And it's been met with, great applause. We definitely have seen a growing band enrollment. For those of you lucky enough to see the band concert for the holiday season, it was amazing, and it's almost doubled in size. Athletics, we've had the field expansion project, which is off to the left of the baseball field. We are done. We've completed rebuilding one of the varsity fields, which is in the center of the track. Down at the lower fields, we'll actually be able to actually host varsity level competition down there, which we never have before because it wasn't suitable. And that was done basically with a loan. The district bore the cost of all of that through securing a loan. Enrollment, we are still seeing increase in our residents. We know this, you drive on any road around, you see that there are houses being built, and so yeah, we're getting bigger, and that's a good thing. We continue to decrease in school choice out students, which is, one of the benchmarks that one looks at to see if, in terms of the district satisfaction. Because again, folks will not send their children to school that are not preparing them for the future and aren't safe and give a feeling of inclusivity. So we're always very proud to point that out. Our facilities, we do things, when we can, but we constantly are upgrading or trying to do some pre-maintenance, but we've replaced the carpet in the library, which was long overdue. We've added heat pumps to middle and high school, library and kitchen. If you remember some of the presentations last year, we had runaway heat, spending the district money. We've switched to an ebook system in the middle school, high school library. We've talked certainly about this at length, but now middle school students are able to access the library, although digitally, whereas before that wasn't the case. And we have quite a number of offerings now. Digitally, it's a lot easier to, of course, maintain and to not store, but certainly to keep track. The budget, continuing to close discrepancy in teacher and admin salaries. We took a great step this year for this FY in our negotiations with the NDEA. And we are comparable, we're getting comparable with our neighboring districts, and that is very important because we need to be competitive with the folks who want to enter into education, and those numbers have decreased over the past, say, 5 years. We finally moved health insurance out of school choice, and that is fantastic. That was a liability. We were able to do that by for a lot of things, but we were able to move that up because we changed our vendor. That gives the opportunity to do that financially. So those are all wonderful, fantastic things that some of the highlights for this year. So this is why we do this. Obviously, the picture of our of our kiddos, things that we're offering, just a small sample, and it's always good to go back to these pictures to give you basically a why, of all the hard work that we put into, and of course the educators and staff here at the district put in on day to day. All right, so when we get to the business of the business, we start talking about foundation enrollment. That's how we're funded. That's how Chapter 70 is funded. It's a per pupil expenditure model. When you look at this is FY26. Obviously, some of the things that I can tell you, we didn't highlight every single column, but what I can tell you is that we doubled the number of ELL kids for FY20 for this current FY over last year. That was a surprise. That didn't really happen in a trickle fashion. It really kind of just came upon us. It really happened almost overnight, not literally, but close. So we have doubled the number of ELL students. Our low income numbers have increased. I'll go to the lower green circle to your lower left. we increased a low income group from 7 to 8. And that percentage is, well, it's 42.31, and that's up from roughly, I think it was around a little over 41, almost, yeah, just 41% last year. So pretty sizable, pretty good jump there, which then catapulted us into low income group 8, and I believe that there are 12 total low income groups. Our special, our special needs students also went up fairly substantially. And we've, again, when we start talking about chapter 70, we start talking about the foundation, those multipliers past the right of the black line. Those are some of the specialized populations that increase or can increase your chapter 7. Many times when I talk about hold harmless, it's that total number to the right, which is the green circle in the upper left-hand corner. That number went up this year. So 3 out of the last 4 years, we have been out of held harmless, which means that the state only funded us whatever the minimum was per student, which ranges anywhere between $60 a student or $110 as it was this year. So all told, when you look at the bigger picture, to the next slide, you're looking at we were plus 17 students in our foundation enrollment, which increased our chapter 78, pardon me, by $561,000. That loomed large, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward. But that is the SOA that folks, I'm sure, have heard about on the news, the Student Opportunity Act, which is to increase the funding formula, to level the playing field in certain areas, and especially with those marginalized populations that I addressed, ELL, special education, etc. So when you look at this, you're saying, okay, we've increased our enrollment by 17 students that garnered close to, a little over, $561,000. And the required net school spending that increased by 5%, which is a little bit over $1 million. So when you go to the next slide, if you were to, we start looking at on the ground level, so that's like 30,000 foot, right? Foundation enrollment and every school age student that lives in the district in which the district serves, that goes to a public school in Massachusetts. So if someone is school choicing, say, to Gardner, for example, we receive the foundation enrollment amount less the $5,000 it is for school choice, which gets paid out in a different mechanism. Okay. It does not count students who are homeschooled or who go to private school. So I just want to make sure that, folks understand that that's what that formula is. On the ground level, like the students from the kids that are literally in our schools today, this, we've talked about this slide a lot. And, we've increased our resident total by 185 students. We've reduced the number of school choice students purposely by at least 70. So what does that mean is that we just did not replace the students who say graduated a senior year, let's say it was 12 or 13. We didn't replace those 12 or 13 by taking in those school choice kids somewhere in the district. We just would not. We actively did that because we were growing and we wanted to keep our class sizes appropriate. So it's roughly a differential over the period of time that I have here, about 160 students, and that's a lot here. And most of them are now at the middle and high school age. Right? When it first started, they happened, it was roughly elementary, but of course, kids get older and they move up the grades. So right now, we're struggling with that is the middle and high school. Just a quick graph in terms of your enrolled students versus the foundation enrollment, right? They're two very different things. Foundation enrollment are kiddos who go to school, public school in Massachusetts. who live in either Templeton or Phillipston, that's the yellow line, and the blue line is, of course, the number of students who are actually in our buildings today. So when you look at this and you're like, wow, that's meaningless to me, but it's, why is this important? Well, it's important because if you look at enrolled and you look at foundation, sometimes that blue line is below the yellow line in some districts, right? Because there are more kids being school choice out, et cetera, or whatever the case may be. So this is good. This is good representation of what we're looking at here. The majority of the kids who live in our towns go to Narragansett School. Both Narragansett. So I like to, again, we talked about one of those markers, which help us inform our decision about one of the many, about how well we're doing. And school choice out is one of those, right? We'd like to see, we'd like to keep track of that. We have to be very vigilant on these numbers because of school choice evolving. But as you see that we out of district are 82 and we receive right now is 125 and the differential is 43. That is too low. It's too close, I should say, right? So, I talked about what's a good, range. We like to keep 75 to 80. We like to keep that around that area as best as possible, because that's really too close for comfort. Because we do not want to get upside down, as they say, by sending out too many kids. And it would be easy here to do that because we're taking in so few school choice students, right? And so at this point, again, back in 20, we had over 250 school choice in, right? So now when we look at that, we have 125. Just goes to show you that we've made this, we've made this decision. We're doing so meaningfully, but we're going to have to take more children, school choice into our district, probably at the elementary, very candidly, because we're going to have to make sure that we replace, not only replace, but maybe buffer a little bit to make sure our differential stays healthy. So this is where the money's at. So, when we look at sending, we look at receiving, it's all money in, money out. The blue line is the difference. It's the differential. That's the important part. And so we're, we're talking about a $358,000 differential, to the good. When you start looking at the receiving dropping below $1 million, it's the first time we've done that in a long time. Also, you're looking at sending, money's dropping as well. So that's why the differential has stayed fairly healthy. But we can't keep betting on that because some of these students who school choice out might need special education services, and that gets tacked on to your school choice out bill through circuit breaker. Okay, so this is a new slide. This is, we don't, some of this can be do same type of information year after year, but this was a new slide. And this is confusing sometimes for folks when they look at this, because they'll say, you have never said that there are 343, whatever many students, staff members in there. Yes. And that's because the general fund is in fact the monies that we talk about when we're doing our budget presentations, right? So the general fund is where we are combining towns money, plural, the state's money, federal, whatever we can into the general fund. That's when I say the important number, it is because that's what we're here deciding, tonight, and what town meeting will decide in May. But this changes a lot. And just kind of as a point, is that the last time I presented this, which was a couple of weeks ago, we've already had to increase sped paraprofessional, and we have 2 that are being posted, because those are the type of things that happen quite a bit where we're just not, there's no way to anticipate those things because these are services that are being provided or need to be provided based on the IEP. Okay. Like teaching positions, not so much. That's not generally going to happen unless we have a conversation, obviously. But paraprofessionals are one of those where we have to add them if they are a requirement. in a student's IEP. There are a lot of different, again, revolving funds that we use or grants, the circuit breaker revolving, I've talked about that a little bit. That's generally sped related. We pay for 2 teachers, 2 BCBAs, and 1 psychologist out of circuit breaker revolving, which is, that's, thank God that circuit breaker revolving exists. Cafeteria revolving, so how much money, people, for lunch and for breakfast, well, that is self-support. Cafeteria pays for itself, in essence. Grants, we have 4 teachers, 7.3 paras, 0.8. This is where generally through grants, we're cutting a lot of, not cutting, we're splitting a lot of salaries where it's appropriate, or actually taking teachers, paying for them out of the grants in some case. So we wanted to list those. That's something that's not in the general fund. Preschool revolving, almost self-support. It's not, to be very candid, because the 2 wonderful folks, there are 3 wonderful folks, but 2 of them have been there for a considerable amount of time, and what we take in terms of preschool tuition doesn't completely cover their salaries, but preschool saves the district a lot of money because the law, you don't have to have preschool, but the law is clear that you're going to have to provide services for a preschool student who needs services, and of course, if you're driving them someplace and that's money, right? So preschool in a district is a great service, and it allows us to get acquainted with our little friends who might need services or not. And we're able to, of course, prepare for them as they get older and they go up through the grades. School choice, we talk about this a lot. There's 9 teachers in school choice revolving account. That's why that account needs to stay healthy, viable. And we'll go a little bit more into that later. Extended day revolving, again, self-support. We don't, through the monies of the tuition, however you want to call it, that the extended day charges, we're able to provide those staff, etc. So so I wanted to go over that, again, because I think it's important, and I don't think people really realize. And by the way, every district does this, every municipality. If you have opportunities to grant or revolving funds, you're going to do these type of things, to lessen the load on the general fund. This is it's the chart of accounts, as we call it, for DESI, or for just in terms of the business office. These are categories, general. So when we do like our line item budgets and we do our end of year reporting, it all has to have the nomenclature. It has to fit. So, 1,000 series is advertising, school committee expenses, central office administration, see that. And so, where you see some of the bigger chart, increases is other school services, because we're talking about nursing, transportation was a big increase this year. And in athletics, benefits fixed charges is generally one of the larger ones as well, because it's insurance. Instructional, I'm all over the place, but instructional, the 2000 series, we're talking about salaries mostly, principals, teachers, counselors, instructional supplies, related service providers. So all told, when you look at this, I think what should be telling you is that there are 2 interesting things, right? One is the maintenance line. It's only a 1.14% increase, right? Preventive maintenance is an important thing. We do a lot of it, but we do a lot of that through our revolving, or we do that through the rural aid grant. People have asked, well, why don't you just put teachers in rural aid or staff in rural aid? Well, for the last 4 years, we've received rural aid. It changes. We always worry about it going away, and you should never put educator or any type of staff member in a revolving, easily cut, monies, because then there is you have no backup. So generally, you'd like to do one-time projects of those type of things to help lower the cost to the district and to its member towns. But overall, we're seeing a 6.89% increase, all told. Okay. Oh, the other one was tuition. right? Out of district school choice and charter tuitions were negative, you know. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're trying very hard to keep provide programs and services in-house. That is going to be that's what everyone is trying to do. That's what everyone should be trying to do, is trying to do. Because if you can keep them here, one, they're part of our school, they're part of our team, part of our family. That is the most important thing. But yes, there's a financial benefit too, right? Because it is not uncommon. I don't know how many we have at this point, but if someone were to go to a residential, it would go over $250,000 for one student. It's one student, $250,000. So if we can, again, there are a level of service agreements that we cannot provide here in the district. We cannot. That's why we work very hard with the collaboratives, CAPS. As an example, they're a good savings to us, but we try very hard not to send students out of district for a lot of good reasons, and one of them is financial. Budget drivers. So, you know, every year we try to, sometimes they stay the same, right? The budget drivers stay the same, but not always. We're always surprised to see what is, you know, some of the things that, you know, year to year, but you know, we like everybody else in town, I don't know, but you know, our water and sewer costs went up 20%. Transportation went up big, right? 301, that's a 30% increase. These are increases that our neighboring districts, like districts that are bordering us, are seeing as well. Went on a little tirade about it's a monopoly, because it is. I'm convinced of it, but I mean, apparently that's slander, so I won't say that. But the fact is that we're not, you know, it's not really bidding at its best, quite frankly. And again, I'm about ready to do it again, so I won't. Special education transportation costs, again, that's why we want to keep these numbers down. These go up exponentially every year. And we try to, again, if you have increase of out of district placements, you're going to definitely have an increase in special education transportation. Where's the regional retirement? We're probably gonna see, you know, these type of increases for retirement. I think it's hard to, you know, ballpark that, but that was a fairly large increase. Our insurance and commissions assessment, staff insurance, that went up 12%. Liability went up 10%. Health insurance went up a grand total of 14%. 9% was the increase to the actual plan for itself, and our cost of living increase of 3% across the district was $600,000. That was 3%. Challenges. It's hard. It's hard 1 minute for me to say to you, more kids are good, because they are. But increase in enrollment has, you know, given us a few headaches over the last couple of years. We caught up last year in terms of the number of staff that we needed, certainly here at the Midland High School. It's increased our curriculum cost. Of course, we needed more buses. We had to add 2 buses. Get to that during another part of the presentation. We need more space. We're full. We are full here at the end. There's just, you know, no place left. More kids mean more staff. We're staff intensive. That's what it means. That's what education is. Once AI can figure it out, we will always be staff, intensive. You know, we've seen a direct increased need for specialized services in transportation, special education, OT, PT, beach. We've seen quite an increase in those specialized services, and they're not easy to find. They're very expensive when you have to farm in college. Hard to fill positions, special education. We currently have 5 open. When I say open, we have 5 positions that are not currently, people are not currently employed by the Narragansett Regional School District. We have wonderful retirees. We have stayed on, we've delayed retirement, and also people who are working collaboratively to fill holes, right? So 2 special education teams are taking over for the 7th grade position. Some of these positions we have, without exaggeration, we have posted, back to Susan who does this, But we had a post for almost 14 months with 0 applicants. I think it's 14 months. It has to be over a year. So, and we just had another special education teacher leave this week without notice, in essence, because the caseload was too much and she had just honestly had it and she just left. So we're seeing that, we're trying to pivot. We're trying to do those type of things to, but this is becoming, it's becoming crazy right now with so many positions that we have. So we're gonna have to either think differently or do something. I don't know. The consultant folks that we've reached out to are not only unbelievably expensive because they know that they have you, because we're federally mandated to have these type of services and teachers, but they're not the quality of people that I would hire. So, and I'll just leave it at that. So we're not having great experiences with these vendors at all. We're talking about some of our most, sensitive students that we have. And we need to be, cognizant of making sure that they have the very best. And the folks that we do have here are the very best. That school choice, we've decreased the numbers in over the past 5 years on purpose. That's gonna stop. It has to, or we're going to be in a situation where we're gonna be playing catch up, and you should never play catch up with school choice. We're going to need to replace, if nothing else, the graduating seniors. I believe it's 13 or 14 this year. It might be a touch above that. That's starting right off the bat, and we're gonna have to look at the elementary. And I've already talked to the elementary, I've talked to the union, they're on board to do that. But we're gonna have to start looking at and start putting kids at the elementary level as well, because we're so full up here. So what have we done, right? What do we do every day? What do we try to do? So the health insurance costs, we moved school choice to the general fund. I probably will say that every year until I leave. I never thought that would happen. I never thought, honestly, deep down inside, that we would be able to do that. That was such a large number. It was such a weight around our neck. And we did. And Marie did a wonderful job in her group in terms of the insurance. And we were able to do that, and that is great. It should never, ever, ever, ever be put there again, ever. Don't do it again. It won't happen in my watch. I'm just simply saying, long after I'm gone, it can never go in a revolving account. That's rule like 4 in terms of these type of, business finance. It's just unbelievable. General fund in the FY20 in order to preserve the school choice funds, right? Employee salaries, we've adjusted to be closer to the local averages. We're going to have to do that. Everyone is doing it. Everybody around here, whether it be the DPWs from various towns or just stores, people are having to increase their pay because we're not getting folks to even apply. And we've done that. We've done a nice job of it. I'd like to think. We've increased the book access for students utilizing the electronic library, sharing over 70,000 books now, right? No longer do we have just books scattered about the library with no one to tend to them. The stacks are gone, etc. And now they have much easier access to the book. They have far more to access, which is outstanding. Upgrade and expand the athletic fields to provide our students with equitable and safer playing areas. Yep, we need to do that. We can't have one athletic field, which we do. This fall, but we're going to have to keep doing that. We have over 300 kids who play sports. So what about the track? I don't know what to say about the track. I think I wasn't here when the track was built. No one did anything pre-maintenance, and now you have a track that can't be used. So that's going to happen. We're going to have to address that. We're going to have to expand practice fields, and we have to make them safe. Kids play sports, right? Kids come to school for a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons have nothing to do with academics. Shocker, but it's true. Athletics, arts, friends, activities, safety, fun. Not so much food, but I would hope food, right? That matters. That matters. People don't like to think it matters, because back when I went to school, yada, 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 yada. We are now in a market where we are trying to attract and keep kids. Look at colleges. Some of you are definitely old enough to remember how colleges used to be. And I can tell you that they're nothing that way 25, 28, 30 years later, because it is marketing now. The largest office in most colleges If you take away the instructors, or what? Admissions. Admissions, and many of them are just doing marketing. Well, schools have to do that too. We don't have the ability to do that necessarily. How do we do that? Through our program. You want to go to college, you don't have to go anywhere. They used to have to go to Gardner, school choice to Gardner, just to go to the Mount, right, to do the early college program. Nope, you can do that now from here. I want to learn a trade. I'm going to go to Monty Tech. Monty Tech's great. You're not going to hear me bad about Monty Tech, but you don't have to go to Monty Tech. You can stay right here, be one of the 12 juniors and seniors. You know, do everything you want to do here and now do vocation, right? You want to get training? I want to go into STEM. I'm going to go to wherever. You don't have to do that. You can stay right here. Why? Because we're one of the 11 schools in the state that has Project Lead the Way K to 12. That's how you get people here. By the way, parents be like, I don't know what any of that stuff is. I just know it costs me money. Well, if you stay here and your kids go here and they want to go to college and they take an early college program, and they take whatever, how many courses Mike Cassman's going to graduate by God's good grace. And he's taken, I don't know, 8, 9 mountain courses, and he's passed them by God's good grace. I'm going to tell you right now, that's going to go into college. He's going to get 3 of those probably accepted, or you know what? That's going to save Mr. and Mrs. Cassman money. I want more of that. So if they take in 3, and by the way, if you go into a state school from the early college program, they just take it all and they transfer it. How much is that going to save you? I don't even know, but it's a lot. So what we have, right? What we have, I see I'm already on a tangent. You said I don't want a tangent. I'm not doing my best, but I'm gonna tell you, you need to do that. If you could care less about schools and you only care about money, then you should want these. It's going to cost you more money, folks, for the 12 or 13 people maybe listening live, if they start to leave. If they start to leave, people leave, and it's going to cost you money. So there you go for that. The added positions to meet a growing need of enrollment, we're going to be talking about that in a second. So that's what we try to do in order to be sustainable. I'm going to turn this over. I did a pretty good job. I give myself a C. So I'm going to let Anne Marie take it from here, and we'll just kind of tag team for the finance.
So what we did is this year, we tried to be respectful of our member towns, and we put together a budget level service. No new positions, just the stuff that we have right now. So like Dr. Casman said, our foundation home through, so that translated into chapter 70 of $561,000, which extremely helpful and really helped the numbers work. I'm just gonna quickly sort of run down the line items, and then we can get into detail later if you have questions. So we had an increase in chapter 70 of $561,000. Charter school, that's always touch and go. That addition of 28,000 is one student that is going now versus last year. Transportation is down a little bit. That's always a moving target with the state. I plan 80%. I just really don't know, because they base a number of estimate on a future number. They don't have it, so they plan on last year's, but as we all know, prices go up. So by the time they get the real number from the end of the year report, it's always higher than what they estimate. E&D, we're just trying to stay status quo with our 500,000. I increased it a little bit this year only because our Medicaid receipts are going down. We have not been able to collect what we've anticipated for probably the last 3 years. So I'm trying to even it out and take it into consideration so that we don't end up upside down if Medicaid goes away. Both towns saw some pretty large increases in their minimum local contributions, which is to be expected because of all of the increase in students that we know have come into the district and all of the houses that we see as we drive around town. The transportation, as we mentioned, we have a new bus contract, and that's gone up 300,000. So that really hurts, as you can see in the transportation differentials for Templeton. They're seeing an increase of 354,000. Phillipston's seeing an increase of 64,000. So when you put all those minimum local contributions and the increase in transportation together, And what we consider the additional appropriation is what both towns give us over what they're required to. Templeton is seeing an increase of 965,977, which is an 11.25% increase over last year. Phillipston is seeing an increase of 165,894, which is almost an 8.25% increase for them as well. So overall, it's giving our general fund budget, we're asking for an increase of $1.6 million, which is almost a 7% increase. And that, I want to remind you again, that's level service. That's not anything new. That's not anything we're asking for. We're just trying to maintain what we have. And I would just point out, school choice, as Dr. Kazmian mentioned, our numbers are going down, so therefore our income is going down as well. In grants and revolving, they are up a little because that number hasn't been updated for a few years. But that is in a very volatile position, at the moment. So, we're hoping things work out, but we're hoping level service will work for us. It's pretty big increases all around, but have pretty big increases in students that cause this, so, the income side.
Okay, so while that is absolutely the budget that we feel is necessary for the funding of our school district, though we felt that level service was the best way to support our towns, Templeton specifically has come back to say that they have concerns about being able to fund the full school budget along with everything else that the town needs to fund. And so we've had a couple of different chairs meetings to better understand what does Templeton have, what does Templeton feel they have the funds for? What do they feel that townsfolk have the appetite for? What are the numbers that in an ideal world we'd be planning towards? And so we agreed to do an exercise whereby we would reduce, we would look at what reductions would do for the FY 26 budget, such that there's only a 2.5% increase for Templeton. And we also took a look at what would that mean if we projected out future years. So the first thing we're going to look at is what the numbers would look like for FY 26, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how we approach those projections. Now, what I want to be clear about here is that we are not saying that this is definitely the budget we're all going to vote on yet. We're still trying to get some more information from the town to better understand what is their planning for the FY 26 budget. Additionally, we would love to have additional input from Phillipston. However, they have been unavailable to attend either of the chairs meetings that we planned, though certainly have been included on the invites. So, you know, there is no go on this just yet. There's still a lot of conversations happening around what we need to do, and yet it's also our responsibility as good partners with Templeton, you know, hopefully with Phillipston as well, to take a look at, you know, what is needed in order to provide effective funding. So
Is there?
That being said-
Has there been any correspondence with Phillipston? Back?
multiple.
No, from them back. And
Okay.
reply back.
So for the first chairs meeting, we received a no from one select board member. And a second select board member did reach out the day of the meeting to express his regret at not being able to attend. For the second meeting, I don't specifically know if we received any RSVPs. We did not, okay.
Thank you.
Should I let you walk through the numbers?
Yeah, so this slide here is basically the same slide we had a little bit further up when we went through all of the expenses and the increases on the different lines. What we did, this bottom number of 25 million represents a 2.5% increase to Templeton. So I have to sort of work backwards when I'm figuring this out. What does that mean if their number is going to be X? What does that mean to the district? So for the district, that means in order to hit that number and make it work for both towns, district needs to reduce our budget by $882,907. What exactly that's going to be is still work in progress. Basically, this was an exercise they asked us to do of hitting the numbers. What does it look like if you hit that number? Then I'm gonna go right into the next 2 years because anticipating that the reductions happen in this year and nothing else changes for the next few years, what do those numbers look like? So when I did it out, it was pretty eye-opening that the $1 million that we have roughly been asking for, we keep seeing it again. So FY 27, this is just salary increases that we know of based on our contracts. It's anticipating a 10% increase to all of our like fixed charges, like our insurances and stuff like that. It's a little increase to our special ed, but not much because I don't know. It changes all the time. So the numbers you see here is level service based on if we have to reduce our budget in FY 26. We're seeing $1.5 million increase for FY 27. If we go to FY 28, all the same considerations as far as staff increases, because we know what their percentages in their contracts. Again, we're gonna be looking at least a $1.3 million increase. And this is just the bare minimum. This is not like, it's only gonna go up from here because there's a lot of other things that are unknown at this time. So,
And this is based on already cutting $803,000. So we're not going in with the level service that I have today. This is cutting $883,000 worth of services, right? Salaries, whatever it may be. And that is what the increase is. And we also factored in that will be held harmless. Because we don't want to assume that I'm going to get 22 kids. If I get 32 kids next year, well, that's a lot of money that we would get in SOA, right? So we got 17 more kids than the year before, and that garnered $536,000, right? So if I got another 17 kids, well, give or take, it'd probably be more, because it's supposed to increase over the 6 years or 7 years or whatever. And so what we did is we said, oh, we're not gonna grow, because I don't wanna factor in that. Could we? Sure. But I don't know that, because we haven't done it yet.
So it's important to know that with growth, yes, we get additional monies from the state, that also increases the local minimum contributions for both of our member towns. So, I completely agree, those things are not, were intentionally not factored in here because it would be a guess. And what we wanted to do was create these projections based on things that are, I'm saying no, but when I say no, what I mean is things for which we have either contracts that tell us exactly what those increases will be, or long time experience with increased averages, like in the case of insurance, where we can set more predictable amounts. And then, I will say that the one, I'm gonna say, guesstimate at this point is related to special education, because that is a strong variable move, and yet it would have been irresponsible for us not to put something into the budget. Because, as we reviewed earlier, one residential placement could cost $250,000. One out of district placement, for, a daytime school could be around $70,000. And so, we had to put something in there, to the best of our ability to do so. Now, what I want to emphasize here is I believe that the story that is out there today is that if Gansett makes major cuts to our budget so that we do not have this $1 million increase this year, is that will then result in savings in future years. What these projections show us is that is not the case. Even with those cuts, we are absolutely looking at $1 million or more in most cases for the coming years. I understand that that's not what folks want to hear. What I will say is that if we move forward with making these cuts, we struggle to envision a situation where we could possibly make any additional cuts in coming years without extreme negative impacts to the district, to our students, to these programs that Dr. Cassavant rightly and passionately spent some time on. And so this is very much an area of concern for us because while we certainly do not wish to cripple the town or its residents with the cost increases, we are all experiencing the results of inflation in our homes, in our businesses. And when towns are limited to a 2.5% increase year to year, but the inflation rate just from last year alone was 3.4% in Massachusetts, we come to a space where it becomes impossible to keep up, and that compounds year to year, and every year that inflation outpaces the increases for the towns. And so, I want to make sure that this information is out there because I've heard several times that people felt blindsided by the $1 million increase this year. I am not certain why that is, because I can go back to the recording from last year where we projected that this year's increase would be $1 million. And yet I also think there is a very understandable, though erroneous logic out there that if folks agree to an increase in year one, then in year two, they're not going to see an increase of the same amount. However, in this time of inflation, in this time where it is not only necessary, but critical for us to make sure that our staff can make a salary that is competitive with our surrounding districts without putting our district at risk of additional losses to our staff. We're in this very tough position. And it's a struggle because, Dr. C is right. We don't have that many folks who attend our school committee meetings. This is the place to hear from us about what's happening with the budget. I understand that the vote, doesn't happen until the town. However, this is not a problem that is just going to impact the school. This is going to impact all the services in our town. Because there is no service in our towns that is going to be able to keep up when there's a 2.5% increase allowed at the town level, but the state is increasing inflation rates at a 3.4%. It's a really tough situation, and what we're keep pushing the town for is what's the plan here? How are we going to get to a point where there is a sustainable budgeting plan across all of our towns? Because that's certainly our goal is never to be a burden to our taxpayers. Our goal is to be a benefit to our taxpayers. But we know money's tight for everybody. We get that. So I'm sure that school committee members have questions. That's, so I welcome anyone to speak up. If you have questions about the projections. If you have questions about the level service budget. I know there was a lot of discussion during the multi-board meeting. But certainly if you've had additional things come up since then, you're welcome to bring it up now.
Okay, I got a couple of questions. Transportation contract, I forget, what was the, yes, what is the contract size? How many years? It is a 5-year contract.
Yeah.
So that would mean, is it actually, so it's a 5-year contract. Does it increase, does it step increase throughout the years? What is it?
It increases every year.
It does increase every year. We know it's a percentage, or we know what?
Well, when I was doing the math, it was about 55,000 a year.
The about increase?
It depends on how many buses we're actually running, but based on what we currently have or are projecting to have, it's about 55,000.
If we add a bus, if the existing contract can go up as well.
Yeah, yeah, a bus is, well, for next year's price
Yeah,
is about
yes.
$90,000 a bus
Okay.
for the year.
Thank you.
That cover your questions, Jeff? I know Sean has a question.
So, okay, Sean.
Yeah, no, and on the same topic, because there is as diligent as a job as I tried to do explaining it, could we also reiterate the reason why we didn't look for a second contract? And I know we talked about it in these meetings. Could we revisit that conversation, because that has been asked several times, of why we didn't go out and get a second bid?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, first off, during the pre-bid, there were all the major bus companies were at the pre-bid, right? I think it's at 5. When we finally had the bid, I mean, there were 2 bus companies that came in and only one offered a contract. By that point, we already knew that Gardner and Ash West had already gone through the same thing, and they were also receiving they only received 1 or 2 bids at the same time. The fear was that we've gone through, Emery and I went through this as business managers years ago. Gardner was a collaborative bus bid, multiple districts, etc. All the bus companies came to the bid, the pre-bid, all of them, and only one gave us a bid, an actual bid. So we played hardball through the city of Gardner, and we actually got a worse bid. We actually got a higher bid amount. It was we only got 1 back. So given that information, we were one, it wasn't as if Narragansett was the only district that was only getting this 1 bid. If you, again, you'd have to go back and you'd have to Google it, but I think it's the state attorney's office has been looking into this phenomena. Whereas that there seems to be, I don't want to, I'm not getting in trouble, but something about collusion that, people have kind of staked out their territories. And there's only some, certain bus companies that are going to work in one area, that area. They go because they want to hear what the bid amounts are going to be, to see if they're going to be competitive in whatever town that they want to go to. So given all of that, I understand that there was like, we should have went out, we should have rebid, you should have went on that. Given our experience, given what we know has happened in other towns, not only across the state, but locally, we were actually afraid that could have, they're looking for bids. So that bus company said, look, I need to make sure that I have something, and they'll go bid someplace else. And if they don't have the buses to do 2 districts, we're out. And so we became, those are the kind of things that ran through our mind when we did that. And I don't second guess that decision. It is what it is. This is not, it's just not a fair playing field, right? And I believe the state is looking into that type of stuff.
The 2 things I'd add to that, based on our discussions, and correct me if I get this wrong, but if we had gone to rebid, we would not have had these numbers for budgeting purposes. We would have been unable to know what our amounts would have been for budgeting for this year, which would have left us in a really tough place because we would have been projecting busing increases, not basing it on what it actually was. The other issue was that if we had gone to rebid, what we were seeing as a pattern in other towns, including local towns, is that when they did make that decision to rebid, that even their single bidder was coming back at a higher amount. So the issue is that is not just related to the number of bids that towns are receiving, is that when they try to, I'm gonna say, play the system, they're getting hurt because even the bid they received from that single bidder is coming in higher the second time, because when you go back out to rebid, you give up that first round bid that you received. You give it up, it's gone. They are no longer contractually obligated to continue to give you that amount. They are allowed to give you a new number, and what the pattern that has been observed is that new number is higher. So not only do you still only get that one bid, now it's even higher than the first time you went out. So those were risks that we were unable or unwilling to gamble with. Knowing what is happening in the towns around us and having access to that information. So I know that everyone would really like us to have rebid, however, we, Dr. Casavan and Anne Marie are having active conversations with the towns around us to stay aware of what is happening. And they use that information to help us as a school committee to make decisions, and that really weighed heavily into us saying, okay, then as much as we do not like this increase, we feel that we must vote for it and not put our district at further risk of even higher increases.
Can I just follow up just as a long shot? You mentioned that there were other districts that were going through the same process this year.
Yeah.
Do we happen to know what any of their contracts came back? Were they at least similar? Do you know what I mean? Like that way there, you can at least look at the
You have
residents
some
of the
exact
community and
numbers.
say.
But while you're pulling that up.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That
Yeah,
way,
the
because
answer, the easy answer without, while Dr. Casavan's pulling up numbers is yes. And we do have those specific
Yeah.
numbers, and yes, their increases were in alignment with ours. Ours is slightly different in that we wanted to add an additional bus route. However, the increase percentages were very much in alignment, so, and this was when we were at the MASC meeting in the fall. This was, the hot topic amongst different school committee members from districts across the entire state of Massachusetts, was the absolute shock at the amounts that these busing contracts were coming in. Because what we have to remember is that those busing companies are trying to make up for their losses that they incurred over COVID. And so they're coming in with these very high amounts to try to make up for those losses.
yeah, I just think it would be a favorable argument if we could prove a similar rate of change.
Yeah, were you happy to, were you able to pull that up?
Because on there, like.
Gardner had one bid, it was a 20% increase.
And I couldn't see because there's a shared spreadsheet that the state sort of puts out like from our business manager group. And our buses for next year between us and Gardner, it's $10 difference. So the numbers are in line. It's like our company versus whichever one they have. So
Ash West also. Ash West, I think it was, I'm trying to find it, because I spoke to him about it, but I believe it was 20%, and I don't remember what the bus per cost was. But they only had two people bid, but one was way like,
Ashbury and didn't fill out the survey.
well, they thought, okay. I'll find it in a second, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, no, it's just, again, it's just trying to explain to, residents and community that questions why do this. I get it, and it's fair, but if you can prove that the rate of change is the same, then
Right.
what more did you want at that point?
Right, I can talk to it from my business perspective, my business won't let me move forward with any less than 3 bids. However, what I'll also say is that in that business world, there is a very different dynamic than what there is in terms of servicing schools. And so however the state is choosing to move forward with that, I will reserve commentary. But competitive, we should be able to get competitive bids. However, what I am seeing in every conversation that I've had with districts across the state, is that dynamic does not exist. And so it really puts school districts into a corner in terms of making decisions.
I will get that information to you. I just can't seem to locate it.
Yeah, maybe that's something we can specifically add in time for the next meeting is, pull those numbers into a slide so that folks can see them as part of the presentation.
And Marie, are we required, or is the transportation on combines list or state transport contract, or nothing is on the.
No, special ed transportation because of the law, you don't have to bid it, but there's no companies for that either.
Okay.
Even when you put it out to bid, you always get the same money along with it.
So, but great questions, because it's a very real issue the district is facing, and I totally agree. When I put on my, daytime job hat, it's difficult to understand because of what happens in a business environment, and yet one of the things I've learned over the past 4 years that I've sat in this seat is just how very different my business world is from, the public education world. So it's been very eye-opening in terms of how things are done, how things work. So they're not comparable states. Any other questions? Comments are welcome as well. I don't want to just restrict it. Go ahead, Sean.
So, can we, and I'm just hitting on the 3 big ones that I see on here. I mean, you're not gonna do a lot about benefits. We just talked about the bus situation. Can we speak a little bit about the instructional increase in, is it? Some of it's their percentage raise, I'm assuming some of it's. What's that?
Yeah, so instructional increases are all based on the union negotiated COLA increases, cost of living increases, as well as step increases for our staff as they move through their years of experience. So those are contractually obligated.
Yeah.
Understood.
There's very minimal into like their supply lines, honestly, in that category, their supply lines, they equal probably maybe 150,000 across like the whole district for their instructional stuff. So they don't have a lot of money in those.
Yeah, wow, in advance, do we know, and we talked a little bit about the charter schools, do we know that in advance, or does that just come up, I mean? Do we know, I guess what it will be, know the enrollment, do we know who's coming in and maybe go to the charter school?
Well, they base it off of when all the schools report for their October 1 numbers, so
Okay.
like if we have kids that are going like the school choice numbers in the charter school. We usually get that sometime in early December. This year it was late, we didn't get it till mid-January. But the state will send out like a roster of what kids you have where.
Once they've accepted it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know from the level service, the number we're talking about is the reduction of the 882 there. That, we still have the 2 additional paras that we're talking about that we did require, right? That before we even start, right? We've added 2 additional paras.
Oh, it's posted, we haven't yet.
But again, so before we even start, those 2 additional
Yeah.
positions.
Yeah,
are
they're
in
not
there. So
even,
before we.
they're not even in, so.
Yeah,
they're
that's,
already-
yeah, it's just, okay, it's just something else we're gonna have to figure out when we get into it. I'm prepared to country.
All right,
For
anybody else?
I'm good now.
Checking with my usual suspects. All right. So seeing no more questions or comments from school committee, I would open it to public input. However, we do not have any this evening. So that will mark the close of our preliminary budget hearing. Continue with regular school committee business. So in terms of appearances, our student rep has, the music practice for the musical this evening, so we let her off the hook so that she can go and sing and dance and get ready for the musical. And NDEA was not able to be here this evening. And I'm assuming we don't have any regular public input about, the, school committee. All right. So moving along, Anne Marie, I know you just went through a lot of different details related to FY 26, but is there anything you needed to report
Now
on
we're
tonight?
just trying to make it through to June 30th.
Okay, as a reminder, we continue to have a school committee vacancy in Templeton. As a secondary reminder, please, keep your eyes open for postings about open positions generally as voting season is about to be upon us, so there are certainly, members who will be rerunning for their seats as well as potentially open seats. So please keep your eyes open. We're excited, to, continue to work with folks, who want to work with us. I don't. My computer is. Oh, we've lost internet. Did we have any surplus items this evening?
No.
Okay, excellent. And I know there's no curriculum and instruction update tonight, so Dr. Cassidy, I would hand it back over to you. Although I'm gonna pause for a moment because if we lost internet, because we lost.
Still one, so it's still going on.
Can we double check?
Sounds good.
All right.
Mine says connected.
Did you, mine says connected, but maybe it's,
You want the public Wi-Fi not secure, that might be why. Did you have a?
I'm looking on YouTube and we're there. We're online.
we're all, okay, we're good. So apparently it's a board docs issue, not a, we'll assume it's a board docs issue, if everyone is confirmed that we're live. Thank you. So Dr. C, anything for your superintendent report this evening?
Well, it could have actually been. I could have spoken about it at the, during the pre-budget, but I just, again, this will be kind of under the normal agenda, the fact that, when we start talking about $883,000 worth of cuts, right? I have to do my due diligence and I have to prepare for that, whether or not it becomes a reality. I've been here 9 years, I think, going on 9, and the way I've always handled that is that, before I lay out a plan, which I'm going to assume that the school committee is going to want to see what $883,000 looks like. Then I meet with with the folks that it affects first. And I've always, and that's why I didn't really offer out anything at that point in time. We haven't had a chance to do that. But I would be doing so, and I've already communicated with the union about deficit or what we're looking at in that. I would like to have a conversation with them either tomorrow or Monday to go over whom I need to speak to. And I try to keep it very limited because it has tentacles, so it's multi-region. But I will be prepared on March 20th to outline the plan, what the district will look like, $883,000 short. But I don't want anyone to hear about their position. We never use names, but a position, we're so small that positions have names, as they say. So, and so that's why I want to be able to reach out to them first individually, personally to do that. And that's really, honestly, short of my wonderful cheerleaders going to be obviously state champions again. And this was a down year. I love how she plays that off. Yeah, I was having like a down year. Okay. My girls basketball team made it to the Sweet 16. They lost to Douglas last night. They had a great showing. I'm just trying to think of some other wonderful things. The snow is melting, which is awesome. But other than, you know, with the business of it is that, I'll be taking care of that business next week. So I would fully imagine that information start to seep into not only it will most definitely seep into the school community, but it probably will seep outside of it. So, you know, we'll address it, I will address it formally, of course, here. When, when it's that time, but I'm sure people are gonna get involved.
You can yell at me later if I'm putting you on the spot, but I know we've also been talking about doing a timeline of the regional agreement.
Yeah, that,
And that we're hoping to review that in our next meeting as well. And while it's not specific to the budget, it certainly has a budget impact, but there's a lot of
Oh, that's right.
conversations.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry, it was just so
No.
Engrossed in the
Next
budget.
time is best because that way it's posted, you know, folks who have been asking questions can have an opportunity to attend, to hear all that information, and we can run through it together.
yeah, that might
But
be the
I
best.
did wanna mention that is something that's been actively being worked on,
Yes.
to try to figure out how is that we move forward there. And really what also is the history of what happened, because there's a lot of information going around online, so how can we bring that back? Share, you know, meeting minutes and whatnot, where things were specifically discussed and, you know, offer some clarity, to the community. And, you know, start to figure. All right, we did not have any items, not reasonably anticipated. Are there any school committee comments this evening? We just met last week, and did our subcommittee reports, and I don't think there has been, so if anyone needs to speak up for either their liaison of assignments or for their subcommittee assignments, please speak up, but I don't believe that there were any meetings, within the last week.
There was a meeting.
Okay, there was, okay.
Thank you. They basically told me that Reba came and did a presentation, and they're working with them to see what I don't really know what that is, but to see what they can provide for the school.
There was no correspondence this evening, as we were just discussing, our next regular meeting is Wednesday, March 20th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. and it will be a budget hearing. So that will be our official budget hearing where we will vote on, the school district budget for FY26. We do not need executive session this evening, and so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Sean, second by Heather, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks very much, for tuning in this evening.